Hi, my name is Hugh McKenna from Asgard Athletics. This week we're going to be going over the benefits of what I consider to be one of the most underrated yet most powerful tools in fitness, Indian clubs and maces. Indian clubs go by a couple different names depending on the region that you're training in and the actual specific tool that have very minor differences, but they really amount to the same thing. It could be called an Indian club, a steel club, a mugdar, a meal. It just depends on where you're training and the specific makeup. Is it made of wood? Is it made of steel? Is it made of both? And the mace can also be called a Gada. Also, again, could be steel mace. It could be made of wood and stone. It could be made of wood and metal. It just depends on the region that you're training this tool in and which specific tool you purchased. These tools are real game changers for functional strength, mobility, and performance. They've been used for centuries by wrestlers and warriors, and they build strength that translates directly to martial arts and combat sports. So traditional weight training like bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, things like that use barbells, dumbbells, and machines focus primarily on linear movements, up and down, back and forth. While that's great for building strength in some areas, it doesn't prepare you for the demands of real-life movement or particularly for combat sports. With the Indian clubs and maces, you're able to train in 3 dimensions, and this is one of the best benefits of training with the club and the mace. These tools work through every plane of motion, the sagittal, the frontal, and most importantly, the transverse, where rotation happens. This makes them perfect for martial arts, wrestling, and other sports that require rotational strength and coordination. Think about throwing a punch or executing a takedown or a throw or making a transition in grappling, or throwing a baseball. These movements happen at 360 degrees, and traditional lifting just can't replicate that. So more specifically, in three-dimensional movement, the transverse plane, I think, is the key to real-world strength. It's where you generate rotational power, whether it's a strike or defending a submission or scrambling in a position, but it's hard to train this with standard gym equipment. Indian clubs and maces allow you to load rotational movements in the transverse plane in not only a safe but a controlled way. The uneven weight distribution of the mace and the club force your body to stabilize and control every movement throughout the swing. This builds strength that's not just functional, it's combat ready. The Indian clubs and maces allow you to load rotational movements in a safe and controlled way. The uneven weight distribution of the club and the mace, where the weight is very far from the handle, forces you to stabilize and control every movement that you make throughout the swing. This builds strength that's not just functional, but also stabilizes different joints in your body, which will, in turn, prevent injury. These tools have been used for centuries, especially by wrestlers in ancient Persia and India, to build strength, mobility, and endurance, because they mimic real-world and combat movements better than any other tool. Wrestlers would swing these tools to develop the kind of full-body coordination and resilience that's necessary to dominate on the mat. In relation to the transverse plane, another benefit that the clubs and mace give you is they allow you to easily incorporate the gait cycle into your training. Most exercises don't address how your body naturally moves when walking, running, throwing, punching, kicking, or just shifting your weight. But with clubs and maces, you're able to train patterns that mirror real-life movement and real athletic movements. For example, alternating swings with a step pattern teach your body to make smooth, efficient weight transfers from one leg to the other. This improves coordination and helps you generate power from the ground up, whether you're throwing a punch or performing a takedown. This is missing in a lot of traditional weightlifting, where you're doing very linear, bilateral for the most part, up and down movements, forward and back movements. You're not getting those weight shifts, you're not getting those rotational movements, especially in your trunk. And if you were to try and do that with those traditional, especially a barbell, it becomes very unsafe very quickly. Another benefit that the clubs and mace give you is they allow you to build the proper kinetic chains. It means training your body to activate your muscles in the right sequence to perform a technique. Every time you swing a club or a mace, you're engaging your feet, your core, your shoulders, and arms in a coordinated effort. For martial artists, this is a huge advantage. Your ability to execute powerful strikes, throws, submissions, all depends on efficient weight shifts and muscle activations in the right order. So training with these tools develops that coordination so your body moves as a single powerful unit. Another benefit of the club and the mace is that your grip and your wrist strength will increase exponentially. This is an absolute must for martial artists, especially grapplers. But even when punching, you need there's a requisite level of grip strength in order to maintain a fist, especially on impact. And not only to maintain the proper grip strength, but also grip endurance, which the clubs and the maces definitely train. Every swing demands a constant grip engagement, which strengthens your forearm and your wrist. And whether you're trying to secure a submission or control in a clinch or throw a punch or just maintain a fist like throughout the match, this grip strength is a game changer. Anyone who's swung a club and a mace can tell you that one of the first things to go is your grip endurance. And as you progress with the clubs and the maces, your grip endurance and strength grows and allows you to hold heavier tools for a longer period of time. And this will, again, directly translate into your combat sport where you're able to maintain a fist, where you're able to maintain your fist on impact, where you're able to grab a grip on a fellow wrestler or in a clinch kind of position or in a Muay Thai clinch and maintain that grip throughout the fight. Another benefit of club and mace training is shoulder stability and mobility. This will help prevent a lot of injuries in your shoulder area. Strong, mobile shoulders are definitely less prone to injury when throwing a strike or defending a takedown or pummeling for positions or getting kimura or getting armbarred, things like that. So like I said in the beginning, this develops strength that translates directly into MMA and any other combat sport or any sport where you have some sort of rotational power that's necessary. In MMA specifically, you're constantly rotating, scrambling, and moving in unpredictable ways. Traditional weightlifting doesn't really allow you to account for that, right? Like a lot of the time, it's like loading a barbell on your back or doing a deadlift where you're hinging your hip very close to your body. Most of the time, they're in bilateral stances, right? And these teach you under stress to stabilize your core so much in an anti-rotational way that when you get stressed out during your athletic event, whether it's a game or a fight, your body is going to fall back on those stress patterns that you teach yourself. So you taught yourself to be stiff and anti-rotate. So now if I need to throw a ball and turn my shoulders and my torso, or I need to throw a punch, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to throw my arm, and my movements are going to become very disjointed. My kinetic chains are going to be broken. My trunk is going to be very stiff, and I'm not going to generate a lot of the force, power, speed, coordination that I need. And especially if I need to shift my weight into one leg, this kind of training doesn't usually happen in the traditional sense. And even if it does, it's on one leg and it's just up and down. It's usually not forward, back, side to side, diagonal in those three dimensions. If you're thinking about like doing a deadlift or a squat in an MMA type situation, let's say you're inside someone's guard and you need to stand up, you're not just gonna all of a sudden magically be on your feet in like a deep hip hinge and pick the person up and lift, right? They're gonna be holding onto your waist with their legs. You're not gonna be able to do that. You're on your knees, your back is rounded, you're probably gonna step up only one leg at a time. Then you're gonna be on one leg, your weight is gonna be over that one leg. You're gonna have a lateral bend, a rounded back. And these are things you just never train in the traditional sense. And how often in a takedown, especially like even like a double leg or something like that, do you have the person loaded on your back? Your back is completely rigid and straight. You're on 2 feet and you're doing a squat with them up. That hardly ever happens. So when you train with the clubs and the mace, you train your body throughout these awkward and real life situations where you do have a lateral bend. You're on one foot, your weight is shifted to one side. You may have a rounding in your back. And maybe you're only holding onto half the person's body, which requires a larger amount of grip strength because they're much more unstable and wobbly as opposed to a rigid dumbbell or a rigid barbell where the weight is centered and it's easy to lift. It doesn't really require a lot of grip strength. So training with the clubs and the maces allow you to train through all these awkward real life situations and gain strength throughout those ranges of motion and translate them into your sport. So to sum up, the reason I really enjoy training with the clubs and the maces is that they unlock three-dimensional movement, they load the transverse plane, they improve your gait cycle, and build proper kinetic chains. They strengthen your grip, protect your shoulders, and make you more coordinated and more powerful. Anyone who trains with the club and the mace and is also a combat sports participant can probably attest to this, but I would say that my strength increased about 30% once I started incorporating the clubs and the maces into my training, because I got stronger through a wider range of motion and a much more awkward range of motion where I do have a lateral bend, I do have a rounding in my back and other things like that, or my arm is away from my body and it's not coming straight up, straight down in a curl. Maybe it's off at an awkward angle, or it's even behind me, or it's in front of me. It doesn't matter, right? I've trained all these ranges of motion and I'm strong in all of them now. So yes, I might not be able to deadlift 800 pounds, but I'm certainly stronger in a combat applicable situation. So again, I'm Hugh McKenna from Asgard Athletics. We're just going over some of the major benefits of training with the club and the mace for all sport, but very specifically for combat sports. If you like the video, please hit that like button and drop me a comment if you have any questions or just want to tell me about your club and your mace training and how it applies to combat sports. That would be great to hear from all of you. And if you like the videos, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the weekly videos coming out. Later.